Hi, everyone. Ed Bixby here from the Global Green Burial Alliance, and this is Spotlight Now. Today, we're here with Peter Shackelford of Heartwood Caskets. A little bio on Peter. Peter and his wife Amanda bought a hobby lumber mill in 2020 and have been finding logs and converting them into lumber and making things from cutting boards to small timber framed cabins. After Peter was laid off from his tech job in April of 2024, they decided to turn their side shuffle into a full-time job. Working out of their home shop, they have made casket bookcases where the bookcase is not an afterthought. They are part of a community with rich death care culture and find value in making caskets that are beautiful and a meaningful part of people's lives as bookcases and chests, and in death as caskets. So welcome, Peter.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Heartwood Caskets and how it came to be?
After we got our mill, we had a friend that was in great health, and she was just like, "I want you to build me a casket," and we're like, "Okay, we'll get to that eventually." And then a couple of years later, somebody in our parish had type stage 4 cancer, but she continually beat the odds. So she lived for 6 years with cancer, and she had lots of time to plan her own funeral. And so but that event in our community made more people in our community be like, "Oh yeah, I want to be prepared. I want to think about." They're thinking about like how to be prepared for death, and so then we had a few more people ask us, "Hey, can you build us a casket?" And we were like, "Oh, that's interesting. We'd love to." And then after I got laid off, it was like, what I could go back into tech, or I could do something less analytical, a little bit more physical. And I really like the thought of transitioning to making something more meaningful and useful. As a software engineer, I was solving problems, doing puzzles all day, and the people that I was helping were never people that I actually got to meet. They're all way out there somewhere. And I knew I was helping them, but it felt like there's a disconnect. So being able to build something physical, something that will last as long as it needs to, for somebody that I'll have a chance to meet, just felt like a really good, something that was missing in my life, where I was like, you know what, this would be really great.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's a matter of the personal experience and something tangible. So, I mean, we totally understand, in particular with helping families. So, yeah, that's beautiful, Peter, and that's really the reason why most of us are involved in this movement. Helping people is very life, transforming. So, tell us a little bit about the production process, where you source the materials, and what steps are involved. I mean, how long does it typically take to produce a casket?
We are still figuring that out. We have two types of caskets that we make. The pine ones are easier to put together. We source the wood from a lady-owned saw business up in the UP. We don't I'm in southern Michigan, and around here we have a lot of hardwood, cherry, black walnut, red oak, but there isn't very much of the softwoods like pine. So we go up north and haul back wood directly from our friend Shelly. And that's already has tongue and groove. So it's a little bit more, you assemble it. And then that's how those ones work. So that's why those ones are cheaper. The hardwood ones, because we have a sawmill, I find logs. Sometimes a neighbor was like, "Hey, I've got this cherry tree that fell down in a storm." And then you're welcome to have it. I mean, otherwise it's going to become firewood. So I go over there with my truck and a chain, and I drag it into my yard. And same with the neighbors across the street. A big oak fell down. We've had friends that they had a tree service come and take down a black walnut in their yard because they wanted more light for their garden, and a mulberry tree. So or if there's a big field that's being cleared, um, people list things on Facebook Marketplace. They're like, I just want it gone, or free for the taking, or whatever. So we just go find logs. Like it's amazing. They grow everywhere and they fall out of the sky. They show up everywhere. So we source our logs, and I have a big stack of logs in the yard. And I have a few other places where people have stacked the logs and like, whenever you're ready to come get them, come get them. So then I mill them, knowing that I'm going to be making caskets. I can mill them exactly at the dimensions that I need, the thickness, and then I dry it. We put it in a lean-to where the wind can blow through and get it mostly dry. And then we put it inside of a kiln, which is a dehumidifier and a household heater. I found a dehumidifier at a thrift shop for $15. I have one of those oil-filled heaters in there, and I have a little household fan in there to circulate the air in there. And then I just bleed off the moisture inside the box, and I gradually raise the temperature. It starts at 60, and then I stop at about 110 degrees. So I just let the moisture come out over a 3-week period, 3 to 4 week period, and then the wood's dry. And then I bring that into the shop, let it sit for a little while to acclimate. And then I turn it into real wood, like put it through a planer, bring it down to dimension. My wife and I work as a team. So she's usually figuring out things or prototyping, and then I work with her to figure out what she's learning. Well, I might be in the background building other caskets. But it takes, the last one took about 50 hours of her just doing it all by herself. And now, since then, we've switched to doing 3 at a time. And that makes it so that we can both be working and getting things done at the same time. And I don't know I think the next batch, we're going to time it and figure out how much time we are saving by doing 3. Yeah. So
well, it sounds like it's quite a process. I mean, people probably don't realize how much actually goes into it, and I'm glad that you actually explained it that way, because it's not like you walk into a Home Depot and you take a piece of lumber off the shelf. I mean, this is really truly artisan, and it's from the ground up. You are taking the log, right, and you're going through the entire process. And I can only imagine that, when it is finished, it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, the colors, the grain, everything that is involved.
Yeah.
So beautiful that, I may dare to say that they may not want to have grandpa or grandma go in it in the end, but it's certainly heartfelt. And that would bring me to, your casket bookcase, because I think the ingenuity in making these things functional until the time of use is important, because people, if they can achieve what they want in that moment, meaning if they can get that product and know that they'll have it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, the meaning behind what you've created with the bookcase casket?
Oh, well, I think some of it's aesthetic and some of it's values and memento mori type stuff. Some of it, so when I look at it, like, it's beautiful. Like, there's no particle board. There's it's a craftsman piece of furniture. And the way that we built them is like there's cutouts for the handholds for the pallbearers, but the lid fits over those cutouts, so they're hidden. And then it gets pushed up against the wall. And it's so it's not a morbid thing to have in your house. It's not shaped like a coffin where it's a 6-sided thing and you're like, oh, I'm kind of getting into my goth vibe or something. It's like, this is any old person could do this. So there's the natural side of things is that we don't use any metal fixtures or anything like that, because if people are eschewing conventional cemetery and funeral practices, embalming, where you're getting pumped full of toxic chemicals, and then you're getting put in a metal box and all that stuff. If you're trying to move away from those things, knowing that you have something that doesn't have any metal, that's going to break down, and that's not going to be a negative impact on the environment, it feels good to be like, this thing I'm going to degrade, I'm going to return to the earth, and so is this thing that I'm in. Like, I'm going to become soil. I'm going to not be a negative impact on the environment in my final act. So that's part of it. There's the aesthetic side of it, something beautiful, something well built. The wood we're drying right now is red oak, and what people think of when they think of red oak is like solid, standard, like all your cabinetry built out of red oak, hardwood floors. It matches your decor. So, but I'm hoping that our caskets will become a part of people choosing to be more intentional about how they will die. I'm Eastern Orthodox Christian, and we have a really rich tradition around death and burial. And seeing that firsthand, it's like, I wish everyone had this. I mean, we have a team that handles deaths, and they prepare the body. They do all of the stuff. We have to hire a funeral director to see us put the body in the ground. So he stands off to the side and goes, "Okay, good job." But we do everything else. And we've done it for a few of our parishioners. And the fact that it's the care that we take of our own dead, the washing, the preparing. We have, as soon as somebody dies, we chant the Psalms over their bodies until the funeral service. And then after the funeral service, but we do the same thing for everybody. Like, right. It's not like, oh, I get to choose no, this is just what we do. And it's what we've always done. And it's a pattern that is, we regardless of whether anybody dies that year, we do it at Holy Week, on Holy Friday and Holy Saturday. Like, the exact same thing that happens on Holy Week is what happens when anyone, like, we have an all-night vigil where somebody's chanting the Psalms, everybody comes and joins in on the service, and it's super meaningful.
No.
And so our caskets, I don't care who buys them, but I do hope that people will find death doulas, or find other people or a community that will value someone's passing, and make it into a beautiful thing, rather than this is an inconvenience, how awkward. Maybe I should start thinking about my own death, or that's the last thing I want to think about. I want people people to have a beautiful experience. So this is just our part. Our small part is, here's a beautiful casket that saves space. You can be prepared, and yeah. I think I probably said too much already.
No. I mean, what's nice, it was that was very well said, in the sense that what this means to you, obviously, is that the meaningfulness, the passion that you have for doing this is to helping people through the grieving process. And I think that shows through what you just described. It transcends the boundaries of religion. It's more or less a sacred type of an event. And thank you for that, Peter, because that's important for people to know. It has a different meaning for everybody, but your product obviously exudes your passion for helping people. And that would bring me a little bit to, we know that you are in Michigan, correct? The southern Michigan.
That's right.
So obviously you are an artisan craftsman. So what regions do you serve? Is it dealing mainly with funeral homes or families themselves? And have you seen a lot of local interest in what you're doing?
We primarily focus on user direct, like we sell directly to people. We do have inventory for people that need caskets on short notice. So so we have like 3 or 4 that we keep on hand. So sometimes we'll be making a batch of 3, and 2 of them are for specific people, and the third one's one that's going to go into inventory. Or there might be something about the casket where it's not conducive to being a bookshelf, but it's still fantastic as a casket, where there might be some minor defect that makes it harder to convert into a bookshelf. So we'll be like, let's just let this one be a casket, and then have that one. We're planning on putting a thing on our website that lets people choose this one, rather than something that we're going to build per order. We're serving the southern Michigan area. I think basically 3 to 4 hours driving. We deliver ourselves. We're still figuring this side of things out. We have people out in the Chicagoland area that are interested. We have some people in the Cincinnati area that are interested. And so Fort Wayne, Toledo, Cleveland, so we have a pretty big circle that we're willing to deliver. And there are a few parishes that are interested. If they want to get several, then we would be like, okay, we could bring orders of several to you. That makes it more worth our while. We're not going to drive the logistics of shipping. Right. Is not what we're ready to deal with, because we are artisans. We're doing just a few at a time. And so we'd rather keep the human contact side of things and the local side of things being our primary focus. This is wood from Michigan. It's not it hasn't traveled much. There's a really low carbon footprint. We take the sawdust and give it to a friend, and she spreads it in her chicken coop and puts it in her duck coop. And then we burn the scrap when we're making maple syrup, which we're about a month and a half away from maple syrup season. So we use the material that's the waste for things. But the main thing is that I think we're not competing with people that are doing shipping, like flat pack shipping stuff. Right. Our product is completely different. It's a sturdy bookshelf casket.
As it should be. No, I mean, and I hope you're an inspiration to other artisans out there that want to serve their community, because it sounds to me like the full circle of sustainability is there with your product. You know, you've got all these multifaceted things that you're doing, through the entire process. So I commend you for that. Let me ask you, where do you see Heartwood, let's say, in the next 5 to 10 years? And do you plan to expand your range, maybe potentially offering something like a eco-friendly, biodegradable urn or anything like that?
We do see ourselves making urns. We've talked with my father-in-law. It's like, yeah, you need to make urns. And right now, we're still focused on getting our caskets, like just smoothing that process out so that we can make them faster, and figuring out things like, we always need to drill things just like so that we don't have problems. So in the future, I'm hoping that we will get to the point where we're able to feel good about, like, provide for our family really well, possibly hire another person or two. But bigger isn't always better. I think that we're seeing this as something more of a lifestyle thing, where it's something that aligns with our values. We're not trying to supersize or outcompete anybody. I'm of the mindset that there's certain things that every town needs, and that's like a butcher, a dairy, a casket maker, soap makers. Like, there's certain things that I feel like the more local microeconomy there is, the better. And I feel like I don't have any problem with other people starting doing things similar. And I think that it's great.
No, absolutely. That's a great vision to have, and something people don't understand. Unfortunately, in the world we live in, I mean, time is everything, and spending time with your family and having quality of life is most important, because you can always make more money. You can never make more time, and you can't get it back. Yeah. And, I think that's a wonderful philosophy. And I think, you know, that mindset goes along, I'm sure, with many of our consumer and providers, that, you know, you need to have that quality of life and do something you're passionate about. So you're very fortunate that you're doing something you feel good about. Which would bring me to, and you probably just answered it, but you know, what is the most gratifying part of your work, and what your family's doing? And I think you touched on that, but
Well, I got into it because we were woodworkers, first of all. Like, we're hobbyists. We just build stuff all the time. Like, we're always like, I wonder what we could. Like, it's funny. For a little while, my daughter was like, all you guys talk about is wood. But then she was making swords for all of her friends at church. I think she was 13 or something at the time. And then she was like, well, I picked out this piece of wood because the grain runs like parallel and that makes it stronger and stuff. And we're like, you're listening, even if you're decrying the fact that we're obsessed with wood. So I think some of the things that I get out of it, I mean, it's the family time. I have my daughter's a sophomore in high school. My son is almost a teenager. So being home and being able to have more time with family is a high value. But the other thing is the beauty. Like, beauty is so important. We live in a world where people are like, oh, I don't care what it looks like as long as it works. But wood is so beautiful. Like, people are like, oh, just particle board. It gets the job done. It's just whatever. Like, there's a joke that goes like, there's two kinds of furniture you can get these days, held together with spit and sawdust, like wood that's made out of spit and sawdust, or the tree was hugged before it was cut down. And I think it's pretty silly, but I prefer the tree that was hugged before it was cut down and turned into something beautiful over, like, I was helping somebody move their bookshelves. They were moving houses, and half of their bookshelves were made out of particle board and pegs and whatever. And you try to move it, and the whole thing just starts to fall apart. And it was just like, well, that one's toast. How many years did you have that one? So making something that can last. And my wife laughs at me because every time I we do all this work on the wood. It's beautiful. Like, right now we're building 2 cherry caskets, and they're just so gorgeous. Like, everything just pops out when you put the finish on it, and we make our own natural finish. So we put it together, and then we put the finish on it, and I'm like, I just keep on like, look, see that? That's cool. That's beautiful. Like, there's this ripple in the grain, and I'm just like, I can't get enough of this. Like, it's just so gorgeous. Like, and I'm hoping that other craftspeople, like, if you can keep seeing the beauty of the work that you're doing, and when you see one piece of wood that's just like, wow, this is a standout. I want to make sure that gets people see this. Beauty is really important.
well, and well said. And I mean, from my perspective, you know, what's interesting about what you're doing is that every piece will be unique to itself. There will never be a duplicate, you know, and there's beauty, in my personal opinion, in imperfection, because perfection cannot be achieved. So you have to embrace the beauty of something as in its natural state. So I love what you're doing. I love your philosophy. You know, Peter, is there anything else you'd like our viewers to know about Heartwood Caskets?
We're just getting going. We're trying to figure out things as we go. The way that things work is that we have a website, heartwoodcasket.com. We accept a deposit when you put in an order, and then when we start working on your order, we invoice you for the remainder. So if it's nice to be able to build something for somebody that's like, yeah, I'll be ready for it in 2 months, and it's not urgent because I'll be around. So I really like the idea of making something that people can cherish and value for years to come, and that will be practical. So I think that's the main thing I want to say is, like, if you decide to come along and make an order, it's a $100 commitment, but we expect you to pay the rest of it when we start working on yours. But we do have a little bit of a backlog, and I'm looking forward to building more of these things.
That's great. Well, thanks for joining us today, Peter. You know, the audience can learn more about Peter and Heartwood Caskets by visiting heartwoodcaskets.com. It was a pleasure to interview you. It was wonderful to hear all about what you're doing. So thanks again, Peter. And this is Ed Bixby from the Global Green Burial Alliance and Spotlight Now. So thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Ed. See you.